Okay, so just let me know the sequence of presentation. So who is coming first, who is coming second, like that.
Sir, 758 is first,
Okay,
then 755,
yes,
then 753,
yes,
756,
yes,
751,
yes,
and 747.
7. Okay, very good.
Good morning to one and all present here. Today, we Group 10 are going to present on the topic carbon footprint, its causes, effects, solutions, and much more. So let's begin. As concerns about global warming and potential climate change have continued to evolve, the term carbon footprint has become ingrained in many people's consciousness. I am Supriya Priyadarshi, and let me tell you what exactly is carbon footprint. The term carbon footprint is defined as the amount of carbon being emitted by an organization, event, product, or even an individual directly or indirectly. Carbon footprints are measured in tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Here, the term equivalent means that the footprint is made up of a number of different greenhouse gases other than just carbon dioxide, which have been converted into the equivalent quantity of CO2 in order to show all the emissions in a single number. Everyone's carbon footprint is different depending on the location, habits, and personal choice. Each of us contributes to the greenhouse gas emissions either by the way we travel, the food we eat, the amount of electricity we consume, and many more. For example, when you drive a car and burn fuel, it generates certain amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. When you heat your house, it also generates some carbon dioxide as that electricity is coming from the coal powered plants. And similarly, when you eat food, it also generates some quantities of CO2 as the food gets processed. In addition, greenhouse gases such as methane, nitrous oxide, and chlorofluorocarbons are frequently included in the carbon footprint as mentioned earlier. The concept of carbon footprint is related and derived from the older concept of ecological footprint, a concept created in the early 1990s at the University of British Columbia by Canadian ecologist William Rees and Swiss-born regional planner Mathis Wackernagel. The calculation of carbon footprints are beneficial in a number of ways, like for publicly reporting greenhouse gas emission and raise awareness, for setting a target of reducing those emissions, and also to identify which activities contribute the most. Now I will hand it over to Shubhranshu.
Thank you, Supriya. Guys, as you know, climate change and global warming are internationally recognized as current issues, driving negative effects on humanity and being mainly caused by GHG emissions generated both from industrial activities and from other anthropogenic activities. Then let's move to the abstract of a carbon footprint. The entire amount of greenhouse gases emitted during the creation, processing, and selling of consumer goods is calculated using carbon footprints. The goal is to identify important sources of emissions in supply chains and to educate relevant stakeholders so that mitigation measures can be done. Consumers can also be informed about their carbon footprints by using carbon labels. A carbon footprint is the total greenhouse gas emissions caused directly and indirectly by an individual, organization, event, or product. So causes are population growth, and increase in consumption level, increase in living standard, increase in energy consumption, deforestation, industrial processes, agriculture vehicles, airplane ships, waste disposal, lack of education, etc. Now I would like to explain the above point briefly. Population growth and increase in consumption level. More people means more demand for oil, gas, coal, and other fuels mined or drilled from below the Earth's surface that when burned spew enough carbon dioxide into the atmosphere to trap warm air inside like a greenhouse. Increase in energy consumption. Non-renewable energy or fossil will increase the amount of carbon dioxide emissions. On the contrary, the consumption of the renewable energy can reduce the amount of carbon dioxide emissions. Deforestation. When forests are cleared or burnt, stored carbon is released into the atmosphere mainly as carbon dioxide. Averaged over 2015 to 2017, global loss of tropical forests contributed about 4.8 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year. Industrial processes. Greenhouse gas emission from industry primarily come from burning fossil fuels for energy, as well as greenhouse gas emission from certain chemical reactions necessary to produce goods from raw materials. Airplane ships. The environmental effects of shipping include air pollution, water pollution, and oil pollution. Ships are responsible for more than 18% of some air pollutants. Waste disposal. Poor waste management contributes to climate change and air pollution and directly affects many ecosystems and species. Landfills, considered the last resort in the waste hierarchy, release methane, a very powerful greenhouse gas linked to climate change. Causes of lack of education, conflict between various government bodies to take action, natural disaster, insufficient social aid, insufficient educational awareness. Now I would like to hand over the next slide to Saubhagya.
Thank you, Shubhramshu. Now let's talk about some of the effects. In general, carbon dioxide is released on Earth by three means: decomposition, respiratory, and ocean release. In simpler words, global economic industrial activities play a central role in increasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and carbon footprint is the measure of their impact on the environment. So let's check out some of the effects. The effects can be global warming, air pollution, acid rain, effects on humans, effects on animals, effects on plants and aquatic life, affecting the whole environmental system. The Earth's climate has been irreversibly affected by global warming, which is driven by an increase in greenhouse gases, mainly carbon dioxide. We can find this in our case studies. As a result, from the some of the case studies, we can find that primary causes of greenhouse gases emission in Delhi is due to increasing number of vehicles and industrial units. In an effort to assess how much Delhi contributes to global warming and what role should India play in fixing the issue, one of the most interesting findings of this case is that vehicles, especially those that were first touched Indian roads after 2005, emit more carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas that contributes to global warming. The study's second important result was that automotive emissions contribute about 72% of all air pollution in between the year gap of 2000 to 2001, up from 23% in the year of 1970 to 1971. Delhi's total carbon emissions are one-third of London's annual carbon emissions of 44 million tons at about 15.41 million tons. Now, I would like to hand over it to Sudipta.
Thank you, Saubhagya. Guys, we know with sustainability claims everywhere, distinguishing between various environmental assessment can be daunting. Life cycle assessment, carbon footprint analysis, water footprint analysis, CSR reports, VOC reports, etc., and the list goes on and on. Life cycle assessment and carbon footprint analysis are two of the most common evaluations. Both can be helpful in assessing environmental impacts and providing a business with information about how to create greener systems. Here are some of the important distinctions of the two assessments. A carbon footprint analysis, also known as greenhouse gas emission assessment, evaluates the greenhouse gas emission caused by the manufacture of a product or a given activity that contributes to global warming. And the GHG protocol is the most common international tool used by the business leaders and the government to comprehend, quantify, and control GHG emission. It includes 4 different standards. First, product life cycle accounting and reporting standard. This standard involves understanding greenhouse gas emissions related to a specific product based on raw materials used, production, distribution, and disposal. It's somewhat akin to product LCA. Corporate value chain accounting and reporting standard. This standard is intended for organization or business to evaluate the entire value chain and calculate the environmental impacts of greenhouse gas emission throughout the chain. The assessment is aimed at identifying possible ways to lessen GHG emission. Third, project accounting protocol and guidelines. This standard is used to assess the impact of any specific project designed to reduce GHG emission. And last but not the least, corporate accounting and reporting standards. This is more or less the same as organizational LCA. It is intended for organization and is used to assess GHG emission from business corporations and activities and to implement plans for reducing emissions. Everything has a carbon footprint. These assessments are designed to discover their footprint for a product, a production plant, and even an entire company. Now, I would like to hand over the next slide to Shubham. Shubham, mic.
Thank you, Sudipta. This pie chart describes the emission of greenhouse gases according to different sectors. The different sectors are transportation, electricity production, third one is industry, fourth one is commercial and residential, fifth one is agriculture, and last one is land use and forestry. The transportation sector almost takes 27% of total greenhouse gas emissions. The transportation sector generates the largest share of greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions from transportation primarily comes from burning fossil fuel for our cars, trucks, ships, etc. The next one is electricity production. 25% of total greenhouse gases is emitted from this sector. Electricity production generates the second largest share of greenhouse gas emissions. Approximately 60% of our electricity comes from burning fossil fuel, mostly coal and natural gas. The third sector is industry. 24% of greenhouse gas is emitted from this sector. Greenhouse gas emission from industry primarily comes from burning fossil fuels for energy as well as greenhouse gas emission from certain chemical reactions necessary to produce goods from raw materials. The sector commercial and residential almost takes 13% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions from business and homes arise primarily from fossil fuel burned for heat, the use of certain products that contain greenhouse gas, and handling of waste. The next one is agriculture sector. This sector almost takes 11% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture comes from livestock such as cows, agriculture, soils, and rice production. The last sector is land use and forestry. 13% of total greenhouse gas emitted from this sector. Land areas can act as a sink or a source of greenhouse gas emissions. As we know how much we love non-veg dishes, we can't spend a week without eating non-veg food. But guys, do you know meat products have larger carbon footprints per calorie than grain or vegetable products because of the inefficient conversion of plants to animal energy and due to CH4 released from manure management and enteric fermentation in ruminants. A vegetarian diet greatly reduces an individual carbon footprint, but switching to less carbon intensive meats can have a major impact as well. For example, beef's greenhouse gas emissions per kilogram are 7.2 times greater than those of chicken. Now I would like to hand over to Sayak.
Thank you, Shubham. Now, the limitation of carbon footprint. Our carbon footprint has a negative impact on the environment in multiple ways. Carbon footprint analysis has its limitations. Despite being the fact that deriving an intensity metric from a carbon footprint analysis is useful, we realize the limitation of carbon in an investing portfolio and do not rely on it as a standalone, be-all and end-all metric. A company's business strategy may, for example, have a minimal carbon footprint, which may be due to outsourcing rather than innovation or a competitive advantage model. Lack of a full cycle perspective. The analysis does not address the entire business cycle, or in other words, the implication of its customers' usage. Now, despite being the fact that a company's products and services assist customers to be more energy efficient, may not be reflected in emissions alone. This additional net benefit would not be considered in a simple carbon footprint analysis. When you drive your car, buy a pair of sneakers, or grill a steak, you contribute to the emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. It's your carbon footprint. Many countries, institutions, and companies have committed to reduce their emissions, while the EU has even set the objective of being climate neutral by 2050. As an individual, you can also estimate your carbon footprint and reduce it. We can change our mode of transportation from a car to a public bus or a train or as much as possible. Communicate as little as possible. We can conserve energy by also taking small steps. That is, number one, unplug appliances when not we are using them. Number two, install LED lights. Number three, make sure your appliances are energy efficient and by doing. Number four, we can practice organic gardening, reuse and recycle materials. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, students.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Thank
few
you, sir.
comments. So,
Thank
in
you, sir.
terms of presentation, it's fine. So, to some extent, I noticed that some of you are reading. Okay, acceptable to some extent. Uh, One more important thing I want to mention in terms of your PPT or material, reference. Okay, so reference is a must in any presentation. Okay, because this is not your data. You have collected it from some sources. Can be some literature, can be some uh, from internet websites somewhere. Okay, so you have to mention the literature details, or if it's from any website, so at least the website address. So these kind of things. Okay, agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Second thing, in terms of material, I'm happy. So I can see the effort you have collected something. In terms of PPT quality, also I'm happy, but there are few things you can improve. For example, a couple of slides have too much text. Okay, normally it's not an ideal thing to put lots of text in a PPT. Okay, rather you make head points and discuss those things, right? And also in one slide, I noticed there's a pie chart, but the text are too small. Okay, so think about you're presenting to an audience where you have like 10, 15 lines. Okay, so the guys, those who are sitting at the back of that hall, they will not be able to see what you are presenting in the PPT. Okay, so these small things you have to be careful. Okay, in future. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, sir.
But
Thank you, sir.
in terms of overall presentation, so I'm happy. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Yeah.
So only one member will upload the PPT, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Only one.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, in terms of pie chart, we cannot describe the whole report, so we have to just show the pie chart and we will describe also, na?
Yeah, that is fine. But the text, you have put some text there.
Yeah,
But they're too
about
small.
that, sir, we tried, sir. It was not taking the canvas properly. That's why
So
we have to do
you
like.
could not change the. Okay, so do
No,
one thing.
sir, no, sir. We
You
tried.
put a text. Yeah, you can put add your text on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we will look.
My point is it should be visible whatever you are presenting. Okay, so this presentation is supposed to analyzed or at least they can see. Okay, the audience can see.
Yes, sir.
In an
Yes.
online platform, it's fine because I am looking at my computer. That's fine. But think about you're presenting to some audience. Okay, from that point.
So you are talking about text size.
Yeah,
Text size.
only one
Okay,
slide.
oh, yeah,
slide.
yeah, sir. Yeah.
So I think because of Google Meet, it was showing a little bit too small. But when we will project it outside of it, we can enlarge it a little.
Okay.
But so still, I get it because the format was not supporting those texts.
Wait, this
The
is
fonts.
Google Slides or what? This is
No, sir. This is Canvas, sir.
Canvas. Okay. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. The next group
Sir,
9.
group 9. Yes, sir.
Group 9.
Group 9.
Sir, group 9 following members are going to present.
Yeah.
First, roll number 745,
Yes.
coming 752,
Yes.
764,
Yes.
748,
Yes.
749,
Yes,
at end 7:46.
7:46. Okay.
Yeah,
Sir?
What's your topic?
our topic is red, south,
Okay.
radiation policy.
Is good.
Okay, you can start.
Good morning, sir, and everyone. This is Satyavrat Sahu. Among with my friends, are going to present on the topic radiation pollution. So let's begin on our topic. First of all, we are to talk about what is pollution. So basically, in simple words, we can say that pollution is the introduction of harmful materials into our environment, and those harmful materials are known as pollutants. So pollutants can be mainly of two types. It can be natural or it can be man-made. In natural pollutants, it can be volcanic ashes, and in human-made pollutants, it can be of waste material which are come out from factories. But the main thing is the majority of the pollutants are of two types. The first one is from the substances like solids, liquids, and gases, or the another one is in the form of energy, which can be radiation, heat, which can be radiation, heat, and sound. But so far from our topic, we are going to learn about the radiation pollution. So now my question is, what is radiation pollution? It is the physical pollution of living organism and then environment as the result of release of radioactive substances into our environment during nuclear explosions or testing of nuclear weapons or mining of radioactive ores or anything related to nuclear substances. So one more question I have to say that how does radiation cause pollution? Okay, so I can say that when there is a presence of deposition of radioactive materials in the atmosphere or environment, especially where there is presence of accident. So when through this ways the radiation takes place from the surrounding.
Now I am going to explain about natural radiation. Natural radiations come from three sources: cosmic radiation, terrestrial radiation, and internal radiation. So the first point is cosmic radiation. The earth and all living things on it are constantly bombarded by radiation from space similar to a steady of rain. Charged particles from the sun and star interact with the earth atmosphere and magnetic field to produce a shower of radiation, typically beta and gamma radiation. The doses from cosmic radiations varies in different parts of the world due to difference in elevation and to the effect of earth magnetic field. So the next point is terrestrial radiation. Radioactive material found throughout nature. It is in soil, water, and vegetation. Low level of uranium and their decay products are found everywhere. Some of these material are ingested with food and water, while some as radon are inhaled. The doses from terrestrial source also varies in different part of the world. Location with higher concentration of uranium in their soil have higher doses level. The major isotopes of concern terrestrial radiation as uranium and their decay products of uranium such as radon and radium. So the last point is internal radiation. In addition to cosmic and terrestrial source, all people also have radioactive potassium 40, carbon 14, and lead 210. The variation in doses from one person to another is not great as the variation in doses from cosmic and terrestrial source. The average annual doses to a person from internal radiation material is about 40 million is per year.
Now I am going to explain about the man-made sources of radiation, which include medical uses, residues from nuclear tests, industrial uses of radiations, nuclear accidents, etc. It must be noted by us that most of these exposures are very low in intensity and the total dose does not possess larger health effect. In each case, usefulness of ionizing radiation must be balanced with its hazards. Nowadays, a compromise was found, and most of uses of radiations are optimized. Now talking about the examples, some of the examples of the man-made sources of radiations are like release of radioactive gas, liquid, particles. For example, guania accident, which will further be discussed by my classmate. Next is in the process of nuclear fuel reprocessing, in which radioactive xenon is released. And at last, nuclear accident or fallouts, which is due to the failure of reactor contaminant. But by far, the most significant source of man-made radiation exposure to the public is from medical procedures such as diagnostic X-rays, nuclear medicines, and radiation therapies.
Now I am going to speak about the effects of radioactive pollution. Radioactive pollution is known to have a wide spectrum of negative effects on human beings and the environment. The negative impact that radioactive pollution can have on the ecosystem and on human health has been touched upon in this slide. Coming to health effects, when speaking of genetics, radiation is known to pose a wide spectrum of detrimental consequences. Radioactive pollution can cause damage to DNA strands, which over moderately long durations of time can lead to some forms of genetic breakup. In the case where a person or some organism is exposed to a large amount of atmospheric radiation, the radiation will get absorbed by the bodies. The resulting genetic mutation will make the person or the organism highly susceptible to different forms of cancer. The most common disease that arises in people that have been exposed to radioactive pollution is cancer. Other dangerous diseases that might be brought on by exposure to radioactive waste include anemia, leukemia, hemorrhage, and cardiovascular diseases. It also causes infertility. Next is psychological effects. Even the most resilient of us would be concerned about the effects of being vulnerable to radioactive pollution, and many thousands of radiation emergency survivors have subsequently gone on to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, which is also known as PTSD, depression, and anxiety disorders as a result of their experiences and the uncertainty surrounding their health. Number 3 is economical effects. Improper disposal of radioactive waste can severely contaminate the soil and result in soil pollution. The radioactive matter present in this type of waste may mix with the component of the soil, rendering it highly toxic and infertile, because of which farming becomes impossible. Also, it causes high loss of life and architects. Thus, radioactive pollution poses a very serious threat to human life and also towards the ecosystem as a whole. This is the reason why radioactive waste must be disposed of properly.
So now I'm going to discuss about major accident that happened in a history that causes radiation pollution. As we have seen many accidents that happen due to natural or by man-made mistakes. First of all, I would like to present Fukushima nuclear disaster. It was 2011 nuclear accident at Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan. The proximate cause of disaster was 2011 Tokusumi tsunami as well as earthquake that occurred. It causes major failure in radioactive reactors and resulted the core burnout and the nuclear meltdown that causes a 3 hydrogen explosion, and many of their deaths are occurred. Now coming to the Guani accident, it was a 1987 accident that contaminated the whole city with a small change in abdomen hospital site. It was sufficiently handled by many people, and many of them contaminated. Around 249 of them found have been contaminated and 4 are killed. This is the best example to show how a miscareless things such can lead to the severe dangerous things. Now at last, coming to the Chernobyl disaster, it was the major and the worst accident that took place in the history. As many of this has come across, like we have like we have read many articles, seen movie on this Chernobyl disaster. It was happened in USSR in southern Ukraine, and now day to day also you are hearing about it due to the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. It was considered the most nuclear disaster in history, both in the cost and in the casualty. The initial emergency took together. Still, The decontamination of the environment took place, and more than 5,000 people, more than 5 lakhs people got contaminated. Nearly hundreds of are dead, and 18 billion Soviet rubles are destroyed.
Saurav, your mic is off.
Coming to controlling measures of radiation pollution, some of the major control measures of radiation pollution are radiation exposure protection, radiation contamination protection, controlled area, controlled storage and disposal. Exposure distance. Exposure decreases with the square of distance from the source. Time of exposure. Time of exposure should be kept as low as possible. Shielding. Dense attenuating material between a source of radiation and the surrounding so as to adequately reduce or practically stop the travel of radiation. Collection and disposal. Radioactive waste should be changed into harmless form or stored in a deep layer of the lithosphere where their gradual harmless decay can take place. Radiation contamination. Laboratory hoods, air filter and exhaust system eliminating, dry sweeping, wearing protective clothing and radiation indicator. Lastly, medical examination, regular x-ray of chest or lower back should be avoided.
These are the references that took help from this article. I'm going to conclude this PPT. The radioactive pollution effects are irreversible. We cannot deal with it. It costs in a two ways, both in a personal loss and economic loss. So we have to take care as a responsible citizen. We have to take care and we have to learn from our past days that we should not repeat this accident in future. At last, I'm going to conclude with a wonderful quote. You can't force people to care about our natural environment, but if you encourage them with connect it, just might is. We Group 9 are signing off. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So overall, it's a good presentation. So all the members are well prepared, and in terms of material, also good. PPT quality is also good. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I think the mistakes are very minimal, so that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And today is Saurav's birthday, sir.
Yeah, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Happy birthday, Saurav.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. The next.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the groups which have given their presentation can leave or just stay in meet.
It's up to you. Okay, it's up to you. If you want, you can stay here and listen.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
If you are here, then you can listen to the other students. I mean, if there might be some very good presentation.
Sir, at the form, we will write the names of all the members.
Where?
The Google form that you have provided.
No, only one member. One member will upload. So from the group itself, I will know who are the members. Okay, so nothing to worry. And I'm also noting it down all the roll
For the
numbers.
name section, we will write the name of who is submitting the.
Who will submit only? Yeah, who will submit.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, attendance you will give according to
Yeah. No worry. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Okay, group 7.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Tell me the sequence.
Sir, it is 851,
Okay.
861, 855,
Wait. 851. Then.
861 means according to the presentation.
Okay, let me have a look.
Okay, sir.
Okay, it's 851, 855, 859,
861,
861,
867,
867,
869.
869. Okay. Okay, you can start now.
Good morning, sir, and my colleagues. Let us introduce first that my team comprises of myself, Achal, Adarsh, Anand, Ananya, Arnav, and Aryaman. Our topic is grey water management in rural areas. So, as we know that water is very much essential to all living things. Only 3% of Earth's water is fresh, in which 2.5% is unavailable. Day by day, it has been observed that there is a punctuality in fulfilling the requirements of water due to less rainfall or wastage of water, etc. Therefore, it is very much essential to manage water from grey water. Grey water refers to the domestic wastewater generated in households or office buildings from streams without vessel contamination. Irrespective of its importance, over 80% of wastewater generated by the society flows back to the environment without being reused or treated. It can originate from combination of domestic, industrial, commercial, agriculture activities. Main sources of grey water can be rainfall runoff from roads, car parks, roofs, sidewalks, storm water, etc. Washing water like water used in washing machine, dishwasher, or taking bath, etc. So now I am handing over the presentation to Ananya.
Thank you, Achal. Now let's talk about the composition of grey water. Grey water from bathroom. Water used in hand washing and bathing generates around 50 to 60% of total grey water and is considered to be the least contaminated type of grey water. Common chemical contaminants include soap, shampoo, hair dye, toothpaste, and cleaning products. It also has some fecal contamination through body washing. Grey water from cloth washing. Water used in cloth washing generates around 25 to 35% of total grey water. Wastewater from cloth washing varies in quality from wash water to rinse water to second rinse water. Grey water generates due to the cloth washing and has fecal contamination with the associated pathogens and parasites such as bacteria. Grey water from kitchen. Kitchen grey water contributes about 10% of the total grey volume. It is contaminated with food particles, oil, fats, and other wastes. It readily promotes and supports the growth of microorganisms. The organic fraction in grey water is around 30%, while the nutrient fraction constitutes 9 to 20%. A variety of contaminants, including acidic and alkaline substances, suspended and dissolved solids, fat, oil and grease, heavy metals, synthetic chemicals, and pathogenic organisms are likely to be present in grey water. Now, the consequence of mishandling of grey water. It can make soil water resistant, pollute the water bodies, unpleasant and dirty surroundings, can generate disease causing organisms, loss of precious natural resources, that is water. Drains in rural areas are not common. 63% of rural households don't have drains within their premises. 31% of households have open drains, leaving them susceptible to dumping of other kinds of waste. Only 6% of households actually have closed drainage system. Drain construction is often faulty and improper, leading to cracks and leakage. There is also misuse of drainage system as unintended leakage led to mixing of grey water with fecal matter. Now, the quantity of grey water generated in rural area. Rural area in India is supplied with an average 50 liters square of water per capita per day. 65% to 70% of total water supplied to rural India is converted into grey water. On the basis of quantity of water supply, rural India on average generates about
31,000 million liters of grey water on a daily basis. This primarily includes wastewater from the kitchen, bathroom, and laundry. The volume and nature of grey water varies with the lifestyle of the population. An extremely important determinant of the volume and nature of wastewater is economic status and access to water source. Statewide generation of liquid waste is given in the next slide. Now, I would like to call Adarsh to put his point of view before us.
Thank you, Ananya. And these are some of the benefits of grey water recycling, such as reduced wastewater extraction from rivers and aquifers, less environmental impact from septic tanks and water treatment plants, reduced energy use and chemical pollution from water treatment, and the groundwater recharge and reclamation of nutrients. And now, the benefits of grey water management are: treated grey water provides an opportunity for decreasing the water stress in the country through its reuse for non-potable purposes and for groundwater recharge. This is particularly important given India's growing need for water. Moreover, metals found in grey water become pollutants when they join larger water bodies or are allowed to stagnate, but if integrated with the soil system, they can act as a source of nutrition. The most common example is a holding tank connected to standard drainage pipes that deliver wastewater to the roots of the trees and other large plants. While these solutions are challenging to implement in India, they serve as an extremely useful opportunity in water-scarce rural areas. Effective policy design and technical intervention can turn the challenge of managing grey water into a resource. Thus, grey water has the potential to be used in kitchen gardens, non-potable domestic use, irrigation of agricultural fields, and recharging groundwater. And these are some of the principles of grey water management are as follows. Reduce judicious use of fresh water, which will result in generation of minimum quantity of grey water. Reuse, using grey water for purposes such as kitchen gardens, vehicle washing, and toilet flushing, etc. And last one is the recharge of groundwater with grey water by adopting technologies such as soakage pit and leakage pit, etc. And now I would like to call Anand to share his views.
Thank you, Adarsh. Good morning to one and all. Now, today I'll speak on the topic household level management of grey water. We all know grey water is hazardous by nature and a breeding ground for diseases. This is when mixed with fecal matter and other waste becomes black water and thus carries a greater threat of disease. Current practice in managing grey water in rural areas needs improvement. There is an indiscriminate disposal of liquid waste in open areas. Vector-borne diseases like dengue, polio, malaria are largely dependent on stagnant grey water. This is why household level management of grey water should be promoted more. Now I'll start from various household level management. The first is leach pit. It is the simplest and the cheapest technology for treating grey water. It requires minimal space. Operations and maintenance is also minimum and easy. This process requires a brick-lined pit constructed at a comfortable place in your house. The grey water from your house should be directed to this pit. A slit chamber can be added advantage to avoid any solids entering in the pit. The pit should be suitably covered with black stones or RCC cement. The merits of this method are it maintains odor-free environment. There would be no mosquito nuisance. O&M costs are negligible and there are no drains required. Demerits are that the pit should be as near as possible from the source of our wastewater and it should be 10 feet away from away ground water source. It is also not suitable in permanent waterlogged areas. Now I'll speak on another method called kitchen garden. This is the easiest way of reusing grey water, wastewater at household level. If grey water is purified to some extent, it can be very well used for growing vegetables, flowers, fruits for domestic purposes. The design of kitchen garden will differ from every house. Careful planning is very essential. Adequate space in backyard of growing plants along with the willingness of the house owners to grow vegetables is also very important. The household water should pass through the Nahani tap to remove impurities. The Nani tap should also be covered with a suitable screen to screen out solids from wastewater. This will ensure cleaner water. Now this wastewater can be directly used in kitchen garden, or it can be first stored in a pit as per the requirement of the plants. The merits of this method are that it is the most environment friendly way of handling wastewater, and the nutrients contained in wastewater also provide nourishment to growing plants. The demerits are that this could be a problem in availability of space and the willingness to do gardening. Now, I would like to conclude my speech and would like to call Ariman to share his views on his topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand. I would like to talk about semi-centralized community scale technologies. These are household technologies modified and adopted on a community scale. It has the following merits. It can be used for a group of houses where individual management is not possible, and it can be used at a community water points such as hand pumps, stand posts, and wells. It can also be used as an economic activity for self-help groups or small entrepreneurs. It has the following demerits. There may be issues of choking of drains due to irregular maintenance activities. The spillage of grey water and waterlogging in low-lying areas pollute the groundwater sources in areas in the vicinity. Now I'd like to talk about community plantation method. Each house has been fitted with a silt chamber, which is used to prevent silt from entering the pipes, and all the pipes finally meet at a common chamber, from where they take the grey water to the designated area. The designated area may be plantation sites in open areas, pre-existing gardens, or roadside plantations. The second method is the leach pit method. The procedure is similar, except the water is finally carried to a leach pit. It is a brick-lined pit constructed at a convenient place for a group of houses. The number of houses to be connected should be calculated based on the grey water discharged from each house and the space available for the community leach pit. Grey water from the houses include wastewater from the kitchen, bathing and washing areas should be channeled to the pit. Thank you, and I would like to call Arnav to continue the presentation.
Now let's talk about the centralized management. It is also known as the village level management. There are different types of techniques which fall under this type of management. Firstly, waste stabilization ponds. Waste or wastewater stabilization ponds are large man-made water bodies in which black water, grey water are treated by natural occurring processes and influence of solar light, wind, microorganisms, and algae. It is resistant to organic and hydraulic shock loads, provides high nutrient removal if combined with aquaculture, requires no electricity and less operating cost. Second, duckweed pond. Duckweed is a small leafy flowering plant that proliferates rapidly in stagnant or slow moving water. Once it lands in a nice quiet spot, it proliferates rapidly, doubling its biomass every 2 days with the potential to completely cover an acre of surface in 45 days. Duckweed is very effective at uptaking carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, pathogen, and toxin, acting as a natural water filter. Third, reed bed technology. There are 3 types of reed beds. First, horizontal flow. Second, vertical. And third, downflow. There are numerous benefits derived from using reed beds for the water treatment. They protect environment, provide a sustainable alternative, have no moving parts, are low maintenance, require low or no power, have low lifetime cost. Fourth, soil biotechnology. Soil biotechnology is an environment-friendly wastewater processing technology that offers system for processing of both solid organic waste and wastewater treatment using bacteria, earth form in a garden-like setup. This technology was initially developed at Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, over 2 decades of research. Since it reinforces the carbon and nitrogen cycle in nature, the quality of the treated water exceeds State Pollution Control Board standards, reducing chemical oxygen demand, nitrates to very low level, unlike any other STP method. There are certain cautions that should be taken before using any centralized management techniques. They are as following. requires high centralized land. It is very high cost of technology. Operation and maintenance should be performed properly, and regular inspection is very much needed. Now I would like Anshul to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Arnav. So, as our team says, rather than letting water literally go down the drain, this precious commodity has to be reused, recycled, and used as efficiently as possible. For this, we need to change mindset to raise awareness in our society, as most especially production of wastewater must be reused and the wastewater must be recycled to get fresh water or reused in irrigation to fulfill the requirements of water. Thank you. And this is the reference. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, students.
Thank
It
you,
was a
sir.
very good presentation. So all the members
Thank
are
you,
well
sir.
prepared, and I can see that. Also, I can see the effort. So you have collected good number of materials and described it nicely. Only few points. For example, there are a couple of pictures that you have taken it from internet, but the text inside that picture is not readable. Okay, either don't show that, or if you are showing it, then put your own text so that it can be readable. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
But besides that, I think overall is I think I would say it's a good, very good presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next group five. Group five is absent today. Yeah.
Sir, we are present, but we will be giving.
Yeah, yeah. Next. Okay.
Yes.
Then group six. Group six.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, you can start now.
We need some time, sir.
How much time?
So 2-3 minutes. Sir, 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we are starting.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Okay.
Sir, we are starting.
Yes, you can start now.
Water is life, and yet the seas which we depend on are in peril. Today, our ocean is at risk from pollution, overfishing, global warming, ocean acidification, and habitat loss. Good morning, respected sir, and my fellow classmates. This is Aman Kumar, along with my co-presenters Abhijit, Akash, Ananya, Prakhar, and Aryan. We are here to present on the topic ocean and its management. The world's oceans cover over 70% of the planet, but humans have only explored about 5 to 7% of the ocean floor and roughly 0.5% of the vast expanses of the water column itself. Paleolithic art and many oral traditions tell us that the ocean's legacy in human culture precedes recorded history. This watery dimension of our planet provided countless generations food, transportation, and a tremendous source of inspiration. So the next time you get into a conversation with someone about the environment, here are three key reasons why we need a healthy ocean. Scientists believe that the ocean produces more than 70% of the world's oxygen. Oxygen is produced by marine photosynthesizers such as kelp and seaweed. The ocean makes up 71% of the Earth's surface. It transports warm water and precipitation from the equator towards the poles and cold water from the poles back to the tropics, regulating our climate and weather patterns. Over 300 million livelihoods are dependent on a healthy ocean for fishing, aquaculture, tourism, etc. The World Bank reports that more than $190 billion of global annual revenue comes from seafood. Now my friend Abhijit will continue from here. Thank you, Aman. I am going to explain some importance of oceans. Aman, mute. Ocean is an important source of food. It has always been a source of food for human beings. Ocean is the number one source of protein for more than a billion people. This amount account for about 15.7% of the animal protein consumed globally. The sea is a huge store of mineral wealth. Salt is one of the Earth's most important minerals. It comes from rock in the ocean and can be found nearly everywhere in the world. Now I am moving to the next point. Ocean produces more oxygen than Amazon. It is often thought that rainforests are the primary source of oxygen on the planet, but the truth is that rainforests are only responsible for 28% of the oxygen on Earth, while oceans are responsible for the 70%. It does not matter how far we live from the ocean. From every 10 breaths we take, 7 come from ocean. Phytoplankton is a microscopic plant which spends its life being carried by ocean current. It acts in the same way as tree live to do on land. Phytoplankton absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. They are one of the tiniest beings on the planet, but one of the most important to have around keeping us alive. Now I am moving to the next point. Also, ocean is a home to a variety of species. Given the vast size of the ocean, it is impossible to know the exact number of species that live there. When we sail across an ocean, we will see dolphins, whales, or a turtle popping up to take a breath. That is just what we see on the surface. There is more life below the ocean than the land. Experts predict that there are more than 3 lakh different species underwater, and it is still not clear how many of them we know. Now I am moving to the next point. Oceans also regulate the Earth climate. In many ways, sea regulate our climate. It soaks up the heat and transport warm water from the equator to the poles and cold water from the poles to the tropic. Without this current, the weather would be extreme in some regions and fewer places would be habitable. It regulates rain and drought, holding 97% of the water of our planet. Almost all the rain that drop on land come from the sea. The ocean absorbs CO2 to keep the carbon cycle and accordingly temperature on Earth in balance. It is like our global climate control system. Thank you. Now I would like to call my friend Aryan.
Thank you, Abhijit. I will discuss the topic threats to ocean. The ocean is one of the major reasons why humans survive in this world. That's why the threats to ocean needs to be addressed as soon as possible. People seem to think since the ocean is large and vast, we can dump as much as waste as we like into them. Hereby, the first factor, ocean dumping, also known as marine dumping. There are various sources of ocean dumping in which few are oil platforms, marine accident, cargo treatment, illegal sewage dumping, etc. Although a big fraction of ocean dumping is caused by industries, we are also responsible for over excessive consumption behavior and waste production. Land runoff. This kind of waste often carried through water bodies over quite long distances, part of which eventually ends up in our ocean where it can lead to significant ocean pollution, especially in developing countries. This problem is quite critical since industries often dump their trash into nearby lakes and rivers and eventually makes its way into our oceans. Moving on to the next topic, plastic pollution. As we know, plastic are part of every major product being used by humans. For example, packaging product, our mobile phones, meds, etc. Also, according to another data provided by the Environmental Protection Agency, every bit of plastic ever produced still exists, and about 14 million pounds of plastic is dumped every year into the oceans. This comes out to be 1.5 million pounds every hour. Thousands of seabirds, sea turtles, seals, and many more species are killed due to ingestion of plastic or getting tangled in it. Few species are in verge of extinction due to these circumstances. Next point is waste from ships. Ships can pollute waterways and ocean in many ways. Oil spills can have devastating effect. While being toxic to marine life, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon found in crude oil are very difficult to clean up and last for years in the sediments and marine environment. It has been estimated that ships lose over 10,000 containers at sea each year. At the end of the day, ocean pollution is harming both human and killing marine animals. I would like to conclude my topic by awareing others about the fact that there is still time to make our surrounding a better place to live, or else over exploiting the resources will should severe consequences. Thank you. Now I would like my friend Prakhar to take over.
Thank you, Aryan. Reasons for marine pollution. Eutrophication. When there is excess of chemical nutrients, mainly in nitrates and phosphates, in the water, it leads to eutrophication or nutrient pollution. Eutrophication decreases the level of oxygen, reduces the quality of water, makes the water inhabitable for fish, affects the breeding process within the marine life, and increases the primary productivity of the marine ecosystem. Acidification. Oceans act as a natural reservoir for absorbing the carbon dioxide from the Earth's atmosphere. But due to rising level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the oceans across the world are becoming acidic in nature. As a consequence, it leads to acidification of ocean. Researchers and scientists have not been able to uncover the potential damage ocean acidification may have on the Earth's atmosphere. But there is a strong concern that acidification might lead to dissolution of calcium carbonate structure that can affect the shell formation in shellfish and also the corals. Ocean mining. Ocean mining takes place close to the shoreline and far out at sea. It comes in many forms, including dredging for sand and sediments, oil and gas extraction, marine diamond mining, and deep sea mining. Ocean mining needs more monitoring and regulation. The long-term effect of intensified ocean mining on ocean ecosystem are well known, and the cellular economy has yet to be integrated in ocean mining practices across the board. Sewage. Pollution can enter the ocean directly. Sewage or polluting substances flow through sewage rivers or drainage directly into oceans. This is often how mineral and substances from mining camps find their way into ocean. This is a global problem with equally significant challenges in high, middle, and lower income countries alike. Sewage makes up the largest percentage of coastal pollution worldwide. Globally, an estimated 80% of sewage is discharged into the environment untreated. While the impact of sewage pollution on the marine ecosystem are relatively understudied in comparison to other threats, research indicates that it is a significant threat to ocean health. Thank you. Now I would like to call Akash for his presentation.
Sorry, I had a network disturbance. Thank. Is my voice audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, Please you are
Yeah,
audible.
you can begin. Thank you, Prakhar. Ocean covers 71% of the planet and are home to important species and ecosystems that we rely on for food, life food, climate regulation, and more. But the ocean needs our help. Saving the ocean can sometimes feel like an overwhelming task, but if we all pitch in, we can make a big difference. Here are the choices that, when adopted, can help protect and restore our ocean for future generations. Demand plastic-free alternative. The ocean faces a massive growth threat from plastic. An estimated 14 billion pounds of plastic leak into the marine environment from land-based sources every year. That's roughly equivalent to the dumping of garbage truck full of plastic into our ocean every minute. And plastic never go away. We must urge companies to provide consumers with plastic-free alternatives and say no to single use of plastic such as straw, coffee cups, water bottle, plastic bag, balloon, plastic wrapped produced and take out food containers. Reduce your carbon footprint. Carbon dioxide, a known greenhouse gas, is making our ocean more acidic. This is contributed to loss of coral on a global scale as their calcium skeleton are weakened by the increasing acidity of the water. You can reduce your carbon footprint by adopting some of these simple measures. Ride a bike, walk, or use a public transportation rather than driving a car. Have some fun with your diet. Buy sustainably caught wild seafood. It is renewable resources that require minimum fresh water to produce and emit less carbon dioxide than land-based protein like beef. Eat sustainable seafood. Choose seafood that is healthy for you and the ocean from well managed wild fisheries. We know it's hard to know what fish are okay to eat, which is why you can turn to these helpful resources. Print or download a guide from a seafood watch to help you make sustainable choices when you buy. Refer to the Top Chef for sustainable seafood recipe. Consider adding small, oily fish that are packed with protein to your diet. Explore the ocean. People protect what they love. Get outside and explore the ocean around you. If you don't live near an ocean, visit your local lake or river to learn how your watershed connects to the ocean. There are plenty of online opportunities to explore the ocean too. Dive into the Ocean Marine Life Encyclopedia to read fun and interesting facts about all kinds of animals, from shark and seals to octopus to clownfish. Thank you. Now my friend Ananya will continue with her slide.
Now, looking to the future of our ocean is completely impossible to precisely predict any vision of ocean economy. But it is possible to describe an optimistic scenario that combines the main linked components of a stable ocean economy. So, we must take the following measures to boost our ocean economy in certain fields, such as stable ocean food production. Fishing fleets become profitable and stable because fisheries economic and conservation intensive were aligned. Wild fish stocks were reserved, especially the predators, protected against poachers and allocated fairly to the fleets. Next, clean ocean energy. The offshore wind sector continued its exponential growth and replaced fossil fuels as the main source of power from the ocean. Intermittently, issues were addressed as a new grid and storage infrastructure. Offshore wind farms increasingly provided energy to other offshores like mariculture and shipping. Now, low carbon transportation and ports. Shipping continued to move around 90% of globally trade growth by accelerating refining towards zero emission. A combination of efficiency measures, together with the introduction of new fuels such as green ammonia or hydrogen, led to a net zero global shipping fleet. Next is ocean restoration and protection. Ocean restoration and protection were driven by financed by paramedic agendas of carbon mitigation and subsequentration, fishery production, coastal production, and ocean tourism. Carbon mitigation funds underwrote seagrass and mangroves restoration as highly effective carbon products. At last, tourism. The industry continued to grow, provided enjoyable and livelihood for millions of people. This growth was based on stable tourism growth plans which countries developed and implemented in early 2020s. Now, as we come to the end of the presentation, I will conclude that the journey towards a stable future has already begun, with pioneers leading the way. New stable technologies are attracting investors, businesses, and government are waking up the opportunity of a stable ocean economy, as well as to risk the cost of inaction. It is an enormously inspiring journey. Here are some of the references we took the help from. Lastly, we are signing off with a wonderful quote said by Antonio de Saint-Exupéry. If you want to build a ship, don't number people to collect wood and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for endlessly immensity of the sea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, students. In terms of material, I'm happy. I mean, you have really collected a good thing, but still, I'm just wondering whether it's a valid point or not. Did you see the other part of the ocean where the ocean is also responsible for the controlling of the weather, how the heat is also moving throughout the different parts of ocean, and that also contributes to different things. Okay, so have you seen that actually? Did you come across?
Yes, sir, different types of heat waves.
Yeah. Okay, I mean it's fine. I mean it's fine.
Yes, sir. The topic was ocean, its threat and management. So we focused on the threat part and we did not go to the positive part much.
Okay. It should be there. Both needs to be positive and negative. Okay, but it's overall it's fine. But I'm still complaining that few of the presenters are still reading. Okay, so don't do that. Okay, so better write the key points and explain them. Okay, so you should make a contact with the audience. Okay, so
Yes,
rather
we are sorry. We were trimming our speech to shorten its length, so for the time limit.
But in terms of the presentation quality, I mean the PPT itself, well prepared and very uniform, and for that, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that, sir.
Yeah. But there is always room for improvement, so please improve those things. Okay.
Sure,
Okay,
sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, the next is group 14. Group 14?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Just a moment, let me note down the members. 776, 789, 838.
Sir, it is not in the order.
But that's fine. I will
All right.
876. Okay. You can start now.
Yes. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Good morning, everyone. I am Suprasad Sarangi, and today our group 14 is going to present on the topic Earth's natural resource and sustainable living. Earth's natural resource. Firstly, what is a natural resource? A natural resource are those resources that are drawn from nature and used with few modification. These include the sources of value-add characteristics such as commercial and industrial use, aesthetic value, scientific interest, and cultural value. The 5 most important natural resources are air, water, soil, iron, and forest. Air. Clean air is important for all the plants, animals, and humans to survive on this planet. So it is necessary to take measures to reduce air pollution. Water. Around 70% of the earth is covered in water and only 2% of that is fresh water. Initiative to educate and regulate the use of water should be taken. soil. Soil is composed of various particles and nutrients. It helps a plant to grow. Iron. It is found as a mineral silica and is used to build strong weapons, transportation, and buildings. Lastly, forest. Forests provide clean air and preserve the ecology of the world. Trees are being cut for housing and construction projects, so we should plant as much as tree possible. So on the classification of natural resources, these include the sources of origin, stage of development, renewability, and ownership. Moving on to the next slide. Renewable resource and non-renewable resource. What is a renewable resource? These are the resources that are available in infinite quantity and can be used repeatedly. For example, forest, wind, water, etc. Its classification are solar energy that comes from the sun, geothermal energy from the heat inside the earth, wind energy, biomass from plant, and hydropower from flowing water. Non-renewable resources. These are the resources that are limited in abundance due to their non-renewable nature and whose availability may run out in the future. Examples include fossil fuels, minerals, etc. Fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are formed by the remains of animals and plants. Nuclear fuels. Nuclear technology relying on fission require naturally occurring radioactive material as fuel. Uranium is the most common fission fuel. Nuclear power provides around 6% of the world's energy and around 13 to 14% of the world's electricity. Now, I would like Arpit to continue with this slide.
Thank you, Suprasad. Now, I would like to speak on some non-renewable resources and the effects of overexploitation of them. Minerals are non-renewable natural resources that are vital for the construction, manufacturing, and energy industries. These are obtained through the process of mining. Mining involves several health risks like lung diseases, life-threatening hazards, and there are more chances of accidents like roof falls, flooding, etc. Increasing demand for high-grade minerals has compelled miners to carry out more extraction of minerals, which require more energy sources and produce large amount of waste materials. Overexploitation of mineral resources can lead to many environmental problems like mining and extraction process are one of the sources of air, water, and land pollution. Surface mining directly degrades the fertile soil surface, thus affecting the ecology and climate of that particular area. Moving on to the next slide. Coal is a non-renewable energy source which is formed from decayed plant matter that accumulated hundreds of millions of years ago. It is also obtained through a process of mining. Some environmental concerns associated with the use of coal are: it has the highest level of carbon of all the fossil fuels. This means it produces a higher amount of greenhouse gas emissions from energy use, which is bad news for our planet. Pollution caused by emissions of contaminants such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and mercury, which affects human and environmental health. Now I would like to call Bhavya to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Arpit. Good morning, everyone. I would like to start off by talking about how oil and gas exploitation is bad for this planet in general. It has a serious impact on wildlife and our communities. Air pollution from these fuels are invisible killers. It can lead to respiratory, cardiovascular, and other diseases. Very frequent oil leakages can cause the contamination of the ocean body or the offshore land, thus harming the aquatic lives. Accidents and malfunctions can bring workers in contact with hazardous and toxic materials via inhalation, dermal contact, or ingestion. They can pose thermal radiation risks due to fires and explosions. These fire hazards and leakages can cause economic losses and disputes. Moving on to the next slide, I would like to share my thoughts on the consequences of overexploitation of natural resources. They are essential for our survival, but if they are consumed at a faster rate than their natural regeneration, as is currently the case, they can be exhausted. Environmental effects are: it can cause disappearance of habitats essential for flora and fauna, and therefore cause the extinction of species. There are some 30 million different animal and plant species in the world, and of these currently more than 31,000 species are threatened with extinction. Economic effects are: 33% of world soils are moderately to highly degraded, according to United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. If the erosion of fertile soil continues at the same rate, agricultural commodity prices will inevitably soar. It can also lead to decrease of personal income. And the health effects are: If we do not take care of the forests, there will be fewer CO2 sinks and therefore more air pollution. According to the World Health Organization, 9 out of 10 people worldwide breathe air with high levels of pollutants, and 7 million people die each year. Air pollution thus results in respiratory issues and decreased life expectancy. Now, I would like Chaman to produce some stats in front of you all.
You probably know the story. In the last decade, many tries, efforts, amendment bills were issued to help control the climate change, and it has been a massive failure. Comprehensive binding bills meant to reduce emissions did nothing. Last decade was just one negative record after another. Well, this is true, and the reason why so many people are in such a panicked and depressed state about the future. But what if I say it's just the half of the picture? Despite the lack of policies, misinformation, corruption, and influence campaigns from fossil fuel industries, there was a lot of progress. Between 2000 and 2010, we saw an increase of 24% in greenhouse emissions caused by subsidies for fossil fuels aimed at economical growth. For developing countries like China and India, where the coal is the cheapest fuel for growth, while rich countries showed little interest to change. In 2010, it was expected the emission will follow a bullish trend instead of any decrease in the upcoming decade too. But the next decade turned out to be a very different one though. First of all, coal burning has slowed down in our country and has leveled off in case of China, and even plummeted in rich countries like US and UK. Since 2015, three-quarters of planned coal plants have been cancelled, and 44 countries have committed to stop building them. It must have seemed to be a very far-fetched dream when thought from 2010. But today now we can say that the coal is dying. It's not just the effort we have put in, it's just that the coal is no more competitive anymore. Because the technologies we thought would remain expensive have matured rapidly instead. In the last decade, wind energy got 3 times cheaper, while solar energy got 10 times cheaper, cheaper than coal or any fossil fuel burner, despite the massive subsidies and global infrastructure propping up the fossil fuels. Now, my teammate Pratyush will take up on the slides.
Thanks, Shaman. Three-quarters of our land surfaces and two-thirds of our oceans are impacted by our activities. This global loss of nature is making our planet less stable. We are at the risk of destabilizing the whole planet. Our current trajectory leads us to a catastrophic future, but our activities must not like that way. It is not just saving our nature and its resources, it is about saving ourselves. We can create a much better world, but it won't happen by default. Biodiversity equals stability, and stability is what we need in most of our. The plan for our planet is remarkably simple. Reduce our impact by making sure that what we do it sustainably. We must review our activities. Transition of fossil fuel is a must. The statistics which Chaman presented seems very positive, but the faster we complete the transition, the better our long-term gain will be. A global network of no-fission and international treaty of the users of international water would restore the health of the ocean. The next slide depicts about managing the forest selectively, employing newer technology to produce as much as possible from as little as possible will help us to protect our biodiversity and feed more people with the less land. The product in the product line must be fit into the circular economy. The business must be transparent enough where they could proudly say to their customers how eco-friendly their product is. It has to be in the essence of the person who wants to lead the country or who is leading the country or a company that we can't think of economic progress if we are deteriorating our environment. Here is the truth. Nature won't determine our survival. Now we determine nature's survival. We humans are greater problem solvers the world has ever known. We can restore the balance of nature, fix the relation between our planet and our activity, and change the way we live in our planet for better and forever. Thank you very much. Here are some of the websites which were some of our source of that we used to prepare our presentation. And that brings us to the end. I would like to thank you for your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, students. So I think in terms of preparation, you guys are well prepared, and delivering the PPT is also good. Only few things that I have already mentioned in other cases. For example, some of the data is presented by Chaman. Okay, there are pictures. The text inside the pictures is not readable. Okay, so that's few mistakes from there. But overall, the PPT quality is good in terms of material and everything is fine. Okay, and also in terms of presentation. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next, group 11.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So shall we start?
Yes, you can start.
Wait. PPT. Is it visible?
Yes. A very good morning to one and all present here. We are group 11 and today we are going to present on the topic radiation pollution. Starting with the introduction part, radiation pollution occurs when there is a presence or deposition of radioactive materials in the atmosphere or environment, especially where the presence is accidental and when it presents an environmental threat due to radioactive decay. Radiation pollution is of two types, natural radiation pollution and man-made radiation pollution. Natural radiation pollution, as the name suggests, occurs naturally in an environment. Some radioactive materials such as uranium and thorium are responsible for naturally occurring radioactivity. Man-made radiation pollution is a result of nuclear weapon discharge or a nuclear reactor containment breach. The destruction caused by the radioactive materials presents a hazard because of the radioactive decay of the contaminants, which produces such harmful effects as ionizing radiation and free neutrons. The degree of hazard is determined by the concentration of the contaminants, the energy of the radiation being emitted, the type of radiation, and the proximity of the contamination to the organs of the body. It is important to be clear that the contamination gives rise to the radiation hazard, and the terms radiation and contamination are not interchangeable.
Now let's look into the causes of radiation pollution. At first, I would like to tell about the nuclear waste handling and disposal. The handling and disposal of nuclear waste may generate low to medium radiation over an extended period of time. Their effects aren't only hard to predict but might not be easily distinguishable because the radioactivity may contaminate and propagate through air, water, and soil also. Moreover, identifying locations of some nuclear waste isn't easy. The biggest issue is that the radiation waste can't be degraded or treated chemically or biologically. The sole options are either to contain the waste storing in tightly closed container, shielded with the radiation protective material such as lead or diluted. Nuclear accidents from nuclear energy generation. Nuclear explosions occurs resulting in a rapid release of energy from a massive speed of nuclear reaction. Serious nuclear power plants accidents creates tremendous increase in the radioactive particles resulting in the pollution like Fukushima nuclear disaster 2011, the Chernobyl disaster 1986, the 3 Mile Island accident 1979, and the SL1 accident 1961 can be taken as example. Coal ash. Coal ash is incredibly dangerous as it contains a number of substances harmful to human health like arsenic, chromium, lead, and mercury among them. Short-term exposure can bring irritation of the nose and throat, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, and shortness of breath. Long-term exposures can lead to liver damage, kidney damage, cardiac arrhythmia, and a variety of cancer. Use of radioisotopes. Radioisotopes are used to make detectors and in other industrial activities. Isotopes like uranium have high concentration of radiation in them. On the opposite hand, common isotopes like carbon-containing materials are easily found in waterways through sewage lines, since most of the raw sewage is untreated before release. Once released, the isotope combines with other compounds and elements present in water. This is often an equivalent water that folks fetch for domestic use. Further adding medical application. Healthcare facilities employ radioactive materials in both diagnostic and treatment procedures. Radioactive waste can come in many forms. Medical equipment contaminated with trace amount of certain isotopes, clothing, biological material, and the radiation source of radiation therapy, example, a cobalt block. Thank you.
Now let's continue with rest of the causes of radiation pollution. Cosmic rays, a high-speed particle, either an atomic nucleus of an electron that travels through space. Most of these particles came from source within our Milky Way galaxy and are known as galactic cosmic rays. The rest of cosmic rays originate either from the sun or almost outside our Milky Way galaxy. This radiation can alter the cardiovascular system and damages our heart. Mining. In the mining process, the extraction of element like uranium, a radioactive metal, which eventually decay to radium and radium decays to release radioactive gas called radon. This gas sometimes disperses into the atmosphere and becomes a reason for radioactive pollution. This radon gas causes lung cancers. Test on radiations. Scientists are relatively trying to understand and conduct tests on the interesting properties of radiations, as they can be used to cure and prevent further growth of cancer cells, and maybe they can be used as a potential way to cure other diseases as well. But despite this, test on radiation causes death and leakage of radiation, through which radioactive pollution expands. Spillage of radioactive pollution. So basically, spillage of various chemicals due to some natural or man-made disaster have significant level of radiation, causing radiation pollution. Example can be taken as the petroleum product spillage. Production of defensive weapons. The radioactive elements are used while making the high-level defensive weaponries. While they are made under the supervision of various experts and taking all safety measures, but sometimes due to accidental circumstances, there is some leakage of radioactive substances, which results in the radiation pollution.
So now moving on to the effects of radiation on environment. There are numerous harmful effects on plants and animals that directly or indirectly affect humans. Effect on air. The radiation would destroy a significant portion of our atmosphere, specifically the ozone layer. The photons streaming from bursts would cause chemical reactions leading to photochemical smog. This would further deplete our protection from cosmic rays. Gamma ray can pass completely through human and animal body. As they pass through, they can cause ionization that causes damage to tissue and DNA. Effect on soil. Exposure of radiation to atmosphere means it's even present in soil. Radioactive substance in soil reacts together with various nutrients, leading to destruction of those nutrients, thus rendering the soil infertility and toxicity. Such soil leads to harvest of crops that are riddled with radiation and thus unfit for consumption by both animals and humans. Radiation in soils means plants are also affected with this radiation. Generally, we can observe growth reduction in plants. Chromosomal aberration, defined as visually observable change in chromosome structure. DNA damage, defined as the damage to DNA molecule, including DNA sequence, inversion, as well as section of sequence being deleted. And the stroma stops to evaporate water during the increase of radiation. When the radiation hits the chromosome, reproduction gets hampered. This results in altered shape, size, and health in plants. Now moving on to the effect of wildlife. The animals at different levels suffer differently. The high-level organisms can get more affected than the insects and flies. Herbivores such as cattle, when grazing the contaminated land, the deposited CE13 and I-131 get accumulated on animal tissue in a large amount. These radionuclides enter their metabolic cycle and affect the DNA. This ends up having a mutated animal generation with higher risk of health issue with just a small amount of radionuclides. And finally, the effect on marine life. Effect on marine life, the power plants, which are sources of nuclear energy and chemical processing, have been releasing the radioisotopes into water for decades. Cesium, ruthenium, zinc, copper is few of them. Though the waste released is permissible amount, it doesn't mean it's safe. The radionuclides can be detected in soft tissue or the bone of the fishes and the cells of the shielded fish. This was all about the effects on environment.
Exposure to very high levels of radiation, such as being very close to atomic blast, can cause severe health issues and acute radiation syndrome. The radiation on living beings can cause genetic mutation in which ionizing radiation damages genetic material in reproductive cells and results in mutations that are transmitted from generation to generation. Examples include Bloom syndrome. High dose of radiation can kill so many cells Their tissue and organs are damaged. This in turn may cause a rapid whole body response, often called acute radiation syndrome. Also, the skin is very vulnerable to external radiation exposure that can damage the skin. Radiation burns are accompanied by pain, which may be severe and prolonged. There are various effects of radiation on human beings, like in the brain can cause seizures and immediate death. The thyroid gland is vulnerable to radioactive iodine. Insufficient amount of radioactive iodine can destroy all the parts of the thyroid. Radiation damage to the intestinal tract lining will cause nausea, blood vomiting, and diarrhea. This occurs when the victim's exposure is 200 rams or more rate. Radiation can damage the lungs, causing stiffness and difficulty in absorbing oxygen into the bloodstream, and also damages the heart valves. Exposure to high dose of ionizing radiation will lead to bone marrow failure and eventually death. When a person is exposed to around 100 grams, the blood lymphocyte cell count will be reduced, leaving the victims more vulnerable to infection. This often referred to as mild radiation sickness. Intense exposure to radiation material at 1000 to 5000 grams would do immediate damage to the small blood vessels and probably cause heart failure and death directly.
As we now know how dangerous radiation pollution can be, some of the steps to reduce the emission of radiation pollution are as follows. Deep geological disposal is widely agreed to be the best solution for final disposal of most radioactive waste produced. Most low-level radioactive waste, once packaged, are sent to land-based disposal for long-term management. Used fuel is stored underwater for at least 5 years. At present, most of the nuclear wastes are being stored in strong leak-proof containers. It is buried deep inside hard rock formations. Strict observation protocols should be followed for storage of radioactive materials and their wastes so that there is no leakage. Non-radioactive elements should never be mixed with radioactive materials. Any type of mixture between the two may increase the pollution level of radioactive wastes. Each container of radioactive waste must have a properly labeled tag, name of isotope, type of waste, and date fixed to it. Continued testing of atomic and then hydrogen devices led to a rising concern about the effects of radioactive fallout. Efforts to negotiate an international agreement to end nuclear tests began in the Subcommittee of Five in May 1955. The Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was signed in Moscow on August 5, 1963. An excellent option to be safe from the radiation effect is to stay away from the sources of radioactive pollution. At an individual level, one can check for radon gas presence in their houses, office, or other buildings. If a radiation emergency occurs, such as a nuclear power plant accident, the best precaution that one can take is to get inside the houses and stay inside. It is best not to switch on any electrical appliances or gadgets then. In European waters, efforts to reduce carbon emission and increase production from renewable energy sources have led to rapid growth in offshore wind energy generation. Offshore wind power provides a valuable source of renewable energy that helps reduce carbon emission. Technological advances are allowing higher capacity turbines to be installed and in deeper waters, but there is still much that is unknown about the effects on the environment.
Now to relate with radiation pollution with some real-life events, let's discuss the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident of 2011 at the Fukushima Daiichi plant in northern Japan is the second worst nuclear accident in the history of nuclear power generation after the Chernobyl disaster. Immediately after the Fukushima accident in 2011, radiation levels increased in food, water, and ocean near the Fukushima Daiichi plant. TEPCO did not follow the original layout of the piping system for the emergency cooling system. They violated the approved plan for the piping system. After the tsunami, the isolation condenser should have taken over the function of the cooling pumps by considering the steam from the pressure vessel into the water to be used for cooling the reactor. However, the condenser did not function properly, hence leading to overheating, causing a fire, massive destruction, and even more radiation pollution. Japan being in an earthquake-prone zone and hence a tsunami-prone zone, the plant should have taken proper safety measures for a possible tsunami. However, irresponsibility on the part of the plant was observed. Disastrous after effects of such an accident are inevitable. Discharge of radioactive water was reported as early as April 2011. A frozen soil barrier was constructed in an attempt to prevent further contamination of seeping groundwater by melting down nuclear fuel, but in July 2016, TPCO revealed that the ice wall had failed to stop groundwater from flowing in and mixing with highly radioactive water inside the wrecked reactor buildings. On 22nd September, the results were published of a survey conducted by the Japanese Science Ministry. This survey showed that radioactive iodine was spread northwest and south of the plant. Soil samples were taken at 2,200 locations, mostly in Fukushima Prefecture in June and July, and with this, a map was created of the radioactive contamination as of 14 June. Because of the short half-life of 8 days, only 400 locations were still positive. On 24 March 2011, the Austrian Meteorological Service report estimated the total amount of cesium-137 released into the air as of 19 March based on extrapolating data from several days of ideal observation at a handful of worldwide CTBTO radionuclide measuring facilities. The first study concentrated on cesium-137. Around the nuclear plant, places were found containing up to 40 becquerels per kg, 8 times the governmental safety limit of 5 becquerels per kg. Places further away were just below this maximum. East and northeast from the plant, the soil was contaminated the most. Northwest and westwards, the soil was less contaminated because of mountain protection. Radioactive ashes were spread all throughout the radius of the plant, hence adding more to the radioactive pollution. We know how the Chernobyl disaster led to huge amounts of destruction, where comparatively the Fukushima nuclear disaster was better controlled and necessary precautions were taken. Hence, from history, we can say that we have improved with time on controlling radiation pollution and hence have a hope to look into a better future where technological advancements are good enough to control radiation pollution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, all the members are fluent, so all are well prepared.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know what's the magic, but I hope you are not reading from the screen. Yeah?
Thank you, sir.
No, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Again, not reading from the screen?
No, sir.
No, sir.
But how could it be possible so fluent, huh? Particularly
Talented, sir. We are talented.
Okay, only one complaint. Each and every slides you have text, and that too that is too small actually. Maybe it's readable, maybe, but still I think that should be slightly bigger in size, and maybe some key points, rather than having like a series of text inside that. So that's the only complaint. But in terms of collecting the materials, I'm happy with that. So that's fine. So overall, it's a good presentation. So I'm happy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The last group of today's presentation, Group 8. Group 8, are you there? Group 8. Group 8 members, are you there? Neil Jain, Presh Rai, Priyam Ghoshal, Hitesh Priyadarshi, Aryan Kumar Jha, Chavi. Neil, yes.
So actually, a member of a group is having exam today. She called you yesterday, so you said that we can present on 26th.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with this we end our session for today. So I will see you guys next week with the rest of the presentation. So maybe we have to cover like 7 to 9 presentation, because 2 of the groups didn't present today. So yeah, so anyway, we have to cover this. By the way, do you have any class after 11 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can be practical lab, sir.
Okay, so maybe I will give you some pen to you. So maybe instead of starting at 9 o'clock, so how about we start at 8:30, since we have to cover so many presentations. 8:30 or 8. Are you okay? Are you fine with that? Particularly the groups, those who are missed, like Group 8 and Group 5. Group 8 and yeah.
So first you will start the missing group now from
8 o'clock missing group. Then we will start the schedule on, because we have to cover 9 presentations, and And after 11 o'clock, you have also like you have your classes, so lab classes. Agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll start from 8 or 8:30.
8:30, sir.
8:30, yeah. 8:30, like two presentation we can cover in half an hour, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay.
8:30 will be.
Yeah, I think that is group number 8 and group number 5. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So let me mark. Okay. So okay, see. Thank you very much for joining, students. So I'm looking forward for the other presentations, and I hope the other presentations would be way better than the students present today. Okay? Because you learn something, and you also rectify your mistakes or the comments that I made. So I hope the next presentation would be better. Yeah. Okay. Okay, then I'm closing this session, student.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Sir, attendance.
Attendance. And, okay.
Yes,
all
sir.
are-
What about the attendance, sir?
Yeah. Don't worry, all are present. Okay.
Sir, do we need to join the next class?
Sir, because we have completed our PPT today.
Look, I mean, the thing is that if you join, you learn something. Okay. So it's